I'm really happy to have you for this last webinar of the year. I think it's, as you said, both our last webinar of 2020. What a year. I'm really happy to have you with us. We've been working with Ecom Engine tools for quite some time, and we're very happy. So it's great for me to have you here and talk a bit about the benefits of that tool. As usual, we always start with a fun fact, you know that, so you have to go through it. And so go now. I'm excited to hear about your fun fact.
Okay, well, I guess what's going on in my life right now is that we might be adopting two little bunnies. So my kids have been
Okay.
asking for a hamster or a gerbil or a guinea pig or a bunny or something for Christmas, and so I think we're getting really close to adopting two little bunnies, maybe as their big Christmas surprise. So if anybody has any tips on bunnies or warnings to tell me to jump off the ledge now, let me know. We're dog people.
Well,
We have two dogs, but we might be the owners of two little bunnies soon too.
okay. My only insight for that, or it's like the smell is a bit difficult, but you will find out. It's like,
I know that's why I've been holding back. But with the kids at home doing virtual school, I think they're getting a little lonely. They want some extra love, somebody to cuddle, and so I don't know. Maybe there'll be therapy bunnies for them.
yeah, I'll only say good luck to for the cleaning and everything. But that okay, that's not
Yeah.
too bad as a fun fact.
Yep.
Uh, I have indeed also a dog and a bunny, so I can relate to that.
Oh.
And it will be sure interesting. So now after this fun fact, maybe it's interesting to hear a bit about yourself and Ecom Engine. You've got lots of different tools. Give us a bit of an overview, please.
Okay, so yeah, I'm based in Richmond, Virginia, in the U.S. Our company is headquartered here. Of course, we're all working virtually, just like most of the world right now. But Ecom Engine has been around for almost 13 years now, and our first tool is Feedback 5. So that was the first tool that we launched, and it was the very first feedback and review tool for Amazon sellers. And so it's one that we'll probably talk about today since we'll be talking about a lot about reviews and feedback. But we do have a couple of other tools. One is Restock Pro, which is an FBA inventory management tool. It is available for the US marketplace, Canada, UK, and then we're getting ready to launch in Germany. So that's exciting. And then we have a product sourcing tool as well to help you understand different competitive ASINs that are out there, the price, whether or not Amazon's selling it or not, how many other FBA sellers are selling it, and that's called Market Scout. So it's just a very easy tool to use, and yeah, so that makes up most of our suite of tools at this time. So
Yeah, impressive number of tools to have under one roof. So that's great. I think you said how long have you been in the market or
So I've been in
Ina?
the e-commerce space for about 10 years. I was with a company called Snag a Job prior to Ecom
Mhm.
Engine. And so I ran the e-commerce team there. And then I've been at Ecom Engines. It'll be 6 years in April. So
Okay,
yeah,
quite a
so coming
long
up on
history
6 years.
together. Wow,
Yeah.
great. And like it's been Ecom Engine is focusing on Amazon solely, or is it working with other marketplace
Correct. Our
players?
tools, our tools are solely focused on Amazon. So,
Okay.
where Feedback 5 is available in 16 Amazon marketplaces, but we are very Amazon centric. So,
Okay, great. So we'll be talking a lot about Amazon, which is good because we focus a lot on Amazon too. Maybe to start as an introduction is like we all know it's important to have customer reviews, but do you have data? Do you have things to push the fact that okay, customer reviews are actually got the most impact on sales on Amazon? Do you have anything to or you
yeah.
can
So
share on
there,
that?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of research and studies out there that show well, first of all, Amazon's algorithm is top secret, but we all, are constantly taking a look at it, trying to figure out what is weighted more than others. And reviews continue to be weighted pretty heavily. And I think since Amazon is such a customer focused company, they want their buyers to be happy. They want, people to come back and continue to come to Amazon. And reviews are one of the best ways that buyers can trust what they're buying. They want to hear from other buyers. So it's not only having good quality reviews, but having good quantity and recent reviews is kind of the general formula for success when it comes to reviews. You've got to have the quantity You got to have a lot of 5-star, 4 and 5-star reviews, so the quality, and then recent. Some of the data that we've seen is that about 48% of consumers say that reviews are only relevant or only have an impact if they were in the last 2 weeks. And
Okay.
so, it's very important to have recent reviews. Many sellers think, oh, I already have a lot of reviews already, I don't need to worry about getting any more. But if your competitor starts getting very recent reviews and you don't have any reviews in the last few months, your product is not going to look as relevant. So making sure that you have recent reviews. If you go to buy something and the most recent review is from 2019 and somebody else has a review from 2020, it's going to make it look like that other product is the newer model or newer, better version. So recent reviews are extremely important as well.
Okay, and do you have so and you've studied and so yeah, sorry, your the feedback on that is saying okay, the algorithm is overweighting or putting more emphasis on the recent reviews or products which with more recent reviews, and like I've heard that there was a lot about A9 algorithm, and apparently there's an A10 algorithm. So
Right.
I've heard that. Do you know anything about that new algorithm from
Uh,
Amazon?
I think there's a lot still out there that people are trying to figure out the differences. We did have a blog post that went up recently on the A10 algorithm. I did not write that one and research it, but I did read it. Happy to share it. But I think that there's still, reviews are still playing a very big part in the A10 algorithm for sure. So.
Okay, and that's interesting. And before we move, I know we've been working a lot with reviews, and when you have a vendor, you had the Vine program. Now it's coming to sellers to have the Vine program. There was a lot about how Amazon is trying to remove a lot of reviews and how they're saying, okay, there are black hat strategies of getting like too many bad reviews. And it's a very hot topic about, okay, what's allowed and not allowed.
Mhm.
Can you be like explain a bit and walk us through what's allowed and what's not allowed, and I presume feedback 5 is allowed, and so maybe can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah. And there are a lot of black hat tactics out there, and it will get you restricted or suspended. So definitely follow Amazon's communication guidelines. That's most important. They were actually just recently updated back in November. So, kind of rewinding back to September, Amazon announced that they were making some updates. They shared what the updates were and said that they would go into effect November 6th. And so they are now officially in effect. Most of what was updated was clarification that to a lot of things that were already in play, but it was just clarifying that you cannot incentivize for reviews. It clarified that third-party tools are allowed, which we've always known, but I know a lot of other sellers out there hadn't seen it in writing from Amazon, but now it specifically states that. They do have the Amazon App Store, of course, where Feedback 5 and there's a whole category for feedback and review management tools. So if it was not allowed, they would not have that.
Okay,
But
yeah,
we've
so
worked
you feature inside the Amazon seller app, basically
App Store, right?
recommended, or if not recommended, at least allowed by Amazon,
Right.
right?
And the guidelines, some of the updates that were made that were more of a change were a few things like no emojis in subject lines, making sure that you don't include attachments unless it's absolutely necessary to complete the order. They also shared a few requirements when you're requesting feedback and reviews. One is that it must have the 17-digit order ID in the message. The message must be sent within 30 days of the order completion. And the third thing was that it must be translated into the buyer's language of choice. So all of these, as a seller, it seems a little overwhelming that it's just nitpicky, a lot of little things that you need to worry about. But Amazon's doing it to make sure that the buyers are happy and aren't getting spammed, aren't getting a lot of junky emails, and making sure it's very clear to the buyer, what that message is about. And making sure it's in their preferred language is tricky because unless you have access to Amazon's API, through a third-party tool, you don't know the buyer's preferred language.
Mm.
So a tool like Feedback 5, we have worked closely with Amazon and have access to that data. So we share in Feedback 5 what the buyer's preferred language is, and we have a campaign rule to make sure that you send the message in that default language
Okay.
that the buyer has chosen. So.
And that, yeah, that's pretty impressive. So if we want to work with a tool such as Feedback 5, the first step is to link our Amazon seller account with Feedback 5, right? It's an API link,
Correct.
correct?
Correct. So your MWS credentials, you share that, and then we can import your orders, and you can select based on certain ASINs that you want to solicit for reviews or feedback. So if you have a defective SKU, for instance, maybe you don't want to submit emails requesting reviews for that temporarily, or you can exclude refunded orders, for instance, because those are more likely to get a negative review or feedback. So, so it does have some exclusion rules, timing rules, but for the most part, the bottom line with Feedback 5 is that it helps sellers to proactively ask for feedback and reviews and automate it so they can just set it and forget it, so they can focus on other things with their business. So,
And so basically you do it once and you don't have to do anything afterwards?
you don't have to. Certainly, Feedback 5 sends alerts if you get negative feedback or reviews. You can monitor ASINs. So you can upload your list of ASINs to monitor those reviews. You can monitor reviews on competitive items or items that you are considering selling. If you want to, put that ASIN in and keep an eye on the reviews for that before you decide if you want to sell it or not. So you can do more engaging, active things with Feedback 5 in terms of analytics. But if you're really just wanting to send the emails to request feedback and reviews, you could either use automate buyer seller messages through Feedback 5 or the request a review button, which is in Seller Central. But Feedback 5 triggers the automation for that.
Mhm.
So,
So you save a lot of time,
right,
basically, right?
right. Because I mean, it's very manual process to go into Seller Central on the order details page and hit the review button for every order. That's just not scalable.
And a couple of questions for brands which sometimes want to get the information of who are their customers, and they would probably want to keep their email addresses or things like that. Can you, through Feedback 5, get access to the emails, or is that privy to the Amazon seller account?
No, that's privy to Amazon. I mean, I think that they are very protective about sharing that information. Because Amazon views it as those are their customers, not your third party customers. They're Amazon customers. So, so no, they don't share that email address. So it's still
Yeah.
the transposed address.
Yeah, so you don't have access to that, which is, well, I kind of knew, but I think it's interesting to hear it from you, because a lot of brands would like to get to own, and that's often specifically when we're talking of brands more than
Mm-hmm.
wholesalers, is that they would like to know who their customers are, but it doesn't
Right.
work that way. You probably have to use advertising or other tools to get that kinds of insight.
Right.
Now, if we look into the approach of how to generate reviews, do you have like best practices you could share about, what's the best way to generate a review? Like, you have a brand which is not very well known yet, and you say, okay, I'm struggling, my conversion rate is not very good, and I like really to get a boost in terms of on my sales, I'd like to get reviews. What are the best tips to get those reviews?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, having a good quality product. So before you even launch your product, make sure you're thoroughly testing it, taking a look at the packaging, making sure that your listing is accurate, because your listing can lead to negative reviews if you're not setting the right expectation, sharing all the details. So, there's a lot of things to do ahead just to make sure that you have the ability to even get good reviews. But assuming you have a good quality product, the most successful sellers that are getting a lot of reviews, they're simply asking for them. And it sounds so simple, but if you don't ask, then research shows that much fewer seller or buyers are actually going to leave a review. You've got to nudge them, and Amazon only allows one email request to for feedback and reviews, so you only have that one chance. But making sure that you're at least asking on every order is important. In terms of which method is going to be the most effective, buyer seller messaging is still allowed, but you are a little bit more at risk of getting restricted because you are in charge of the content you're putting in your message. So you have to make sure that your content 100% follows Amazon's guidelines. The request a review button found in Seller Central is what we've found as of this year, when it was launched late last year. The studies that we've been doing are showing that sellers are getting much more positive reviews with the request a review button and a much higher response rate. So we had Feedback 5 users, about 1,200 users we took a look at, that switched from buyer seller messaging to automating the request a review button. And in the first 10 days, on average, they saw about a 41% increase in their average daily reviews. So it was a pretty dramatic increase. And I think the reason, there's a couple of reasons for why we think it's working so much better than a buyer seller message is that the buyer seller messages, sellers may not have A/B tested the subject lines, may not have, really tested their content. Also, the message is coming directly from the third party seller versus Amazon, whereas the request a review button is a message that comes directly from Amazon to the buyer. So I
And
think
is
there's some more
Amazon
trust
branded?
there. Right. It's Amazon branded, and it's very simple. It's mobile friendly. So it makes it very easy for the consumer to just, open up the email on their phone, click the rating. It asks for feedback and reviews. And Amazon didn't take it lightly and just come up with a message and activate it. I mean, they thoroughly tested it. So it is optimized to get good results, and it's proving to get great results. And then again,
And that
it's 100% compliant because Amazon's sending the message on your behalf, so you don't have to worry about it. And they will automatically translate that message into the buyer's language of choice. So that checks that box that, it's following all those guidelines.
and so the text of the message is coming from Amazon, not from you. You
Correct.
can't tailor it.
Right. So that's the downfall is you cannot customize that message. So if you have some reason, which there's certainly some valid reasons to customize your message, and if you want to put your branding and your logo and such in your message, then buyer seller messaging is still totally allowed. But
But
just
it's less efficient.
well, if you automate it, it's efficient, but you just have to be careful that you are, that your content is 100% compliant. So it
And
just puts more onus on the seller to make sure that they're staying up to date on the guidelines.
and if you were to compare, or like, do you have numbers or metrics to say, okay, uh, with feedback five, for example, the like the conversion of reviews, let's say, of getting a review is that in average is so many percent? That's the first thing. And second thing, do you have a comparison between the review button, so sending it with the Amazon basically logo, or sending it with your own logo? Do you have some like metrics you could share on that?
So we don't have metrics on that. What we have been studying it though, but it seems to be kind of a wide range, to be honest, the conversion rate.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it's because of the product, the seller, the timing. There's just so many factors that go into the conversion rate to get reviews. And the buyer seller messages, every seller has a slightly different subject line. They have different branding, different look to their emails. So it's harder. It's kind of comparing apples and oranges within buyer seller messaging than to the request a review button. But we throughout this year, starting at the beginning of the year, everybody was using buyer seller messaging. Once the request a review button came out, we saw a slight uptick in first quarter, then second quarter, and then a big spike in September, because the new guidelines were announced that they were putting out new guidelines in November. We had a big spike in sellers starting to use the request a review button. And so now, at least within our tool, 62% of sellers who use Feedback 5 are automating the request a review button, and 38% are doing buyer seller messaging. So more sellers are trusting and just want to do the set it and forget it way. Amazon has changes constantly in so many different areas. It's just a lot to keep up with. So it's easier and more efficient. So if you don't have a specific customization reason to have buyer seller messaging, then request a review is the way to go. And since that is the same message for every seller, we've been able to get more data on that. And that's where we've seen the 41% increase in reviews in
Mm.
that first 10 days.
And you could say that in average, the conversion rate to get those reviews is higher when you use the Amazon send pre-prepared one compared to
Yes.
the brand one, the buy and seller
Yes.
message.
And
Okay.
we've done some case studies, and so has one of the agencies that we've worked with did some case studies with their customers before they transitioned all their clients over. They wanted to test a few of them. And they saw more positive reviews, fewer negative reviews, overall more reviews.
Hmm.
So the numbers varied from client to client, but they were all very positive. So they've now transitioned their clients over to request a review.
Makes sense. And would you say there is we could maybe safely say that it depends a bit on your branding. Like if Coca-Cola is sending, or Pampers, or someone is selling with a big brand name versus Amazon, maybe that makes a difference.
Sure.
Maybe.
Sure.
So it's probably a bit like if your brand is not so well known, you're probably better off with Amazon sending the message in your name.
Right.
One other question I was interested in is, I have my like gut feelings, but it's like, do you see a difference between countries in the conversion, like in the fact of getting reviews or your conversion rate as your with your emails?
Oh, I don't have any data on that, but I have heard, yes, definitely with buyer seller messaging, there has been some advice on how to word your email in certain countries versus others. In India, they've said to be much more direct with what your request is. In other countries, it's, just to be a little bit friendlier and softer, more customer service oriented in that email. So there are some cultural differences that can play into um, how to make that ask for a review. So,
Mm,
but I don't have any data on that. So that's
okay,
something that
because
we should look into. Yeah.
yeah, typically, if you look in Europe and the typical cases in Germany, German reviewers will take a lot of time to, when they do a review, they're normally very long and with pictures and everything. In other
Hmm.
countries, typically in France, where more users like the reviews are much shorter, and like people say, "Yeah, great product, thanks, bye."
Yeah.
And in Germany, will more about the technical features and so on. So anyway, in terms of content, it's true that the way you create content for Northern Europe and Southern Europe, if we're talking about Europe,
Right.
is a bit different. Like emotions come more in play in the southern of Europe, so you need to talk to people's emotions or like imagination.
Uh-huh.
In northern countries, and specifically Germany or Nordic countries, is more about technical specifications. That's basically the broad lines, but obviously this doesn't mean Germans don't have imagination, not at all. But it's like sometimes if you really want to be efficient or work on your content and your conversion rate, you need to work on the content. So obviously with the emails or the like asking a review email, it's the same thing. But what you're
Yeah,
saying
and
is that
kind of on,
basically,
sorry,
yeah,
yeah, and kind of on
yeah,
that
go
note,
on.
so the ratings now, now a buyer doesn't have to even comment and leave a full review. They can just click on the rating, so they can just
Ah,
click 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars and not leave a commented review. So we probably will start to see a more dramatic difference, I bet, in certain countries where people maybe don't want to type in a detailed review, but they're happy just to click the star and move on. But it makes it difficult for the seller because then they don't see, like, if they get a 1 or 2 star review, they don't know why they got a 1 or 2 star review. At least when the buyer was forced or required to leave a comment, you could understand, like, oh, was it an issue with the packaging, or was it, that the item broke and maybe we could fix it, or um,
it's probably
so
a good and bad thing.
yeah.
And do you know if that's implemented in all the Amazon countries or only in the States?
That's a good question. I believe it's implemented in Europe, but I can double
Okay.
check and get back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's interesting because we will see how that impacts the way people. It's a bit like with
Because
the verified purchase and non-verified purchase
yeah,
also.
because it says global rating now. So when if you're launching a new product, for instance, and you don't have any or if you're in the U.S., for instance, and then you decide to launch in Germany, you don't have any reviews yet in Germany, but it will show your global rating from the U.S. That will pull over.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, that I've started to see that more. So
So it will impact one way or the other
right.
how that is working. Um, that's really interesting. And what you were saying is that anyway, because going back to what we were saying about specific content for specific countries, is like the official Amazon letter. You can't control the content, and it's they are translating it themselves for each country, right? So
Right.
maybe the safe way is to let them do the job and let them. If you don't want to spend too much time on the content, right? You use the Amazon email,
Right.
basically, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. That's so for me it's interesting to see that you say okay there's not specifically a way of or how you approach because a lot of people say okay maybe we need to make something or QR code or something for them to get or a specific tactic to get some feedback and you're just saying okay no just don't be like automate the process and just send an email to everyone possible right.
Right, right. Just every order that you have, unless it's a defective SKU or refunded order, basically I would recommend asking for a review and feedback. So,
And we've because we've tested that with different brands, and some brands like the we get a good amount of reviews after the emailing, some less. What would you say is like how many, is there a point where you need to say, okay, you have to have a minimum quantity of orders per month or per day to for it to be successful? Because otherwise the number of people is not enough to get the percentage of reviews. And is there like some products are more successful than the others? Or, and finally, if are there any numbers which are you could be happy with, or some which are lower, like for people to understand if they're doing things right or not?
Yeah, so Amazon in their advertising guidelines, they specifically state that an item needs, for a lot of the advertising options, that you need at least 21 reviews and a 3.5-star rating or higher to be eligible for advertising. That seems really low to me, but that's the guideline that Amazon has given. 21 reviews and 3.5 stars is not, in most product categories is not going to make you very competitive. So, I mean, really the most successful products have thousands of reviews. So, whether you have 100, 200, 300, or 1,000, I mean, always getting more reviews is important because, as I stated earlier, the recent reviews tend to be the most relevant. So it's not always the quantity, it's also the
Mm.
recency. So just continuing to constantly get reviews is important. If it's a product that you plan on having for a long time, having a good quality, reviews, a good history of reviews is great, but also continuing to get recent reviews. Don't just rest on your laurels because you have 3,000 reviews and you don't ask again, or you only get a couple that trickle in over the next 6 months. Then you could start to see a decline in your product. And so when you have a successful product, you want to keep it up there being successful.
Makes sense. And is there a number where you say to people, if you don't have like 100 pieces per month, per day, I don't know, is there a number where you say, okay, if you don't get that kind of number, it will be difficult to generate enough reviews or to have fresh? Is there a number, like a kind of metrics we could?
Like if you don't have 100 pieces, like you're not selling 100 items a
Yeah,
month,
it's
or
like because you need so many. It's a bit like retargeting. If you don't have enough people which went to your product, you can't. There's not enough people to retarget, right? Because there's the conversion rate can be low on the people you retarget. So the
right.
idea is, do you have a number where we say, okay, if you're not generating at least so many sales per week, it will be very difficult to generate reviews. From your experience, is that a number you can?
Yeah, I mean, if you're, I'd say probably out of every 100 orders, you should see, between 3 to 5 reviews. So 3 to 5% conversion rate would be good. We certainly see some that are higher than that. Um, Luckily, with Feedback 5, we do have a free option where you can send 50 emails a month. So even if you're a smaller seller or you just want to test it out, you could send 50 emails a month, but I wouldn't expect to get 10 or 20 reviews from those 50 emails. So if you send 50 emails a month, even just with the free, thing with Feedback 5, and then within a couple months, you might get a few reviews. So obviously, just the more sales you have, I mean, it's all just a math game. It's a numbers game,
Exactly.
and it's kind of like the cart before the horse, or vice versa. Is you have to have more sales to get more reviews, but you have to have more reviews to get more sales. So they all work hand in hand. So just continuing to, do what you can to drive both, like more advertising and such, to get more traffic to your listing, optimizing your listing, asking for reviews, being proactive in your like A plus content, for instance. I mean, that, A plus content is showing, really good conversion rates for sales. It can increase your IPI score. There's a lot of positive things to adding A plus content. So just, videos are awesome. They can really help excite the buyer um, to buy the product. So I know a lot of sellers that product videos is one of their main priorities for 2021, is to get product videos on their
Hmm.
listings.
I think it's really interesting because you have an idea of the virtuous circle. It's like you need to generate a lot of traffic to your page. Then you need to make sure before that your page is really good with A plus, with video and so on, that you convert a lot of those to get more sales. Because the
Right.
more sales, it will get more reviews, and then you start flowing that way. And that probably there's a launch strategy to have, which is to say, okay, you probably need to invest in. More advertising, more promotions with a great price to have a lot of sales, so that those sales with the automation of the emailing, you get a lot of reviews so that organically you can grow. So there's an element from what I'm hearing from you is that, okay, if it's 3 to 5%, it's like, as you say, if it's 100, it's like probably 5 reviews when you're lucky. So that will not generate a lot of sales. So 5 in a month is probably 1 a week. So it's not very fresh. So it's really getting that rolling. And there's an element of investing at the beginning, right?
Right.
Which for some brands is difficult. Then they should probably prepare. So, okay, at the beginning, maybe I will not make so much money, but that's an investment for the future for when I get a better organic ranking. Right.
Yeah, and capitalizing on times, the seasonal times, like right after Prime Day, and right now with the high order volumes that a lot of sellers see through the holiday sales in Q4 with Black Friday and Christmas time. Um, we did a study last month after Prime Day, and we looked at the week before Prime Day, how many reviews on average that sellers had, and then how many reviews they had the week after Prime Day, because obviously sales were up dramatically. And on average, it was a 32% increase in the number of reviews that sellers were getting after Prime Day. And that was just in the first week. And there's no time frame as to how long a buyer has to leave a review. So that was just in the first week after Prime Day. There was already a 32% lift in the reviews from those Prime Day orders. So, obviously the orders are much higher. When the orders are higher, then your reviews are going to be higher. So make sure that those times more than ever, you're asking for reviews. Q4, right now is a great
Mm.
time to have a review strategy in place, because this is probably when you're at your peak season with the most sales. If there's other times of year, make sure you're asking for reviews all the time, but most especially when you have more orders.
And like, was the increase in the number of reviews gotten higher than the number of the increase in sales? Like, were they getting more than 32% in sales? My question is, when you grow a lot of your sales, were you increasing also the number of reviews per sales, or the
So
conversion rates goes down a bit?
So on Prime Day, the orders from the sellers that we looked at had about 2.5 times as many orders on Prime Day. But keep in mind, like, that's a 2-day time frame that we were looking at. We looked at a 1-week time frame of the reviews, and it was a 32% increase. So it was not a 250% increase. It wasn't in line
Okay.
with orders, but
Your
that was
conversion
only
rate goes down, but it's still interesting, but you get much more reviews still.
But it was also, that's only 1 week after Prime Day.
Mm.
Sellers might leave a review 2 weeks
Ah,
or 3 weeks or 4 weeks after Prime Day for what they bought on Prime Day. If they bought a computer or they bought something a little more technical, or maybe it was a Christmas gift and they haven't even given it yet to even give that review. If they bought, like, a scooter for their kid, they're not going to leave a review until their kid opens it and plays with it. So it's kind of
makes
hard
sense.
to
Yeah.
compare.
No, it
So yeah.
makes sense. But it's like, what I'm taking from that is really that it's a number game. It's like,
Mhm.
because reviews are so important to be successful, and that you will get only reviews. Like, if you don't use a tool to get reviews, the conversion rate to reviews is very low. So
Right.
A, you need to get a tool to automate it, and B, you need to get as many orders as possible at the beginning to get them in an organic way, let's say, because and not because people are trying to get reviews and paying things and giving gifts. So we still receive sometimes when it's a FBM, like people delivering directly, where you get a little card inside with a QR code and say, leave us a 5-star review and you'll get that kind of gift or something,
Mhm.
which is forbidden, right? But
Right,
so the
right.
best way
You can put a
is really
product insert in
organically.
there. Yeah, you can
Yeah.
ask for a review, but don't say, if you're happy, leave us a review. If not, call us. And don't say, please leave us a 5-star review. You just have to be very neutral, or you could be at risk of, yeah, violating the
Yeah.
guidelines.
On that point specifically, it is, you can leave an insert saying, okay, leave us a review if you're happy and call us if you're not. Is that possible? Is that a phrasing which is allowed?
That phrasing is not allowed. No. So
Okay,
you have to be very neutral. So any of those if or statements tend to be looked at as risky. So if you say, if you're happy, leave a review. If not, give us a call and we'll make it right. That can be viewed as,
yeah, trying to, okay.
trying
So
to,
if you say something like, please leave a review, it's very important for us, thank you,
yep,
that's
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 neutral. That's
permitted.
good.
So you,
Yep.
yeah, you can. Okay, great.
And the,
Okay.
the reviews, as we're talking about just the quantity and getting more reviews. I mean, even if you only have 10 reviews on your item, if they're all positive, that's great. But keep in mind, if you don't continue to get more positive reviews, you'll get one negative review. It's coming. At some point, somebody's going to leave a negative review. And if you have only 10 positive reviews and you get one negative, that one negative carries a lot more weight than if you have 100 or 200 or 3,000 positive reviews. Even if you had 100 negative, you have a lot more positive. So you always have to continually to get more positive reviews to outweigh those negatives that we know are going to come in. You're going to have unhappy customers, unfortunately. You want to make it right. And with reviews, you cannot ask the buyer to change their review or to remove it. But if you get negative seller feedback, you can offer a really good customer service and then ask them one time to update or remove that feedback. So with feedback, you are allowed, and the buyer has 60 days to remove or update their feedback. But reviews, the seller cannot ask the buyer to update that. What you can do, though, one tip is just to comment on the review. If somebody does leave a 1 or 2 star review, even though unfortunately the buyer will not be alerted that you commented or replied to them on their review, at least it shows other potential buyers that you're keeping an eye on your products, that you're proactive, that you stand behind your products, that you want to provide good customer service. So by just replying to that negative review in line publicly will at least let other people who are considering buying your product know that you are available and willing to make it right if they had that same experience.
Yeah, great. And so one thing which happens sometimes is like you get a bad review because the delivery was bad. And that's, for example, on an FBA product, it's completely down to Amazon because they ship millions of products and sometimes, okay, they get it wrong. Our experience is that it's sometimes very difficult to get reviews removed when we believe they are not like genuine or they're not linked to the product. Do you have any recommendation on what could be done to or how you can play it to remove sometimes some of the reviews which are not pertaining to the product itself?
Yeah, so you can certainly request removal, but what we've seen in our experience is the only time Amazon will remove it is if the review is 100% about, like if it's a negative review about that should be about the product and they're talking about the pack or the shipping. If it's 100% about shipping, they will remove it. If there's even one mention about the product, then they won't remove it. Same thing with like seller feedback. So it has to be 100% like opposite of what it should be, or 100% it should have been about it was Amazon's fault. But if they said one thing that like, oh, this product fell apart and it arrived late, they're not going to remove that because there was also a comment about the product. So it has to be 100% about Amazon or
Yeah, so
FBA.
and then the only solution is to generate more reviews. But as a user, I typically go to 5 star and then I click on the 1 star because I want to see the best ones and the worst one to get an idea. So yeah, it's probably consumers can see if the people are talking about the delivery is not really the product, but okay, still on the average, it's got a big impact. One thing is there are 2 types of reviews, right, on Amazon. You've got the product review, like it's a real review, and then you've got the seller feedback, which is another thing where you can put stars, right?
Yeah.
On Feedback 5, can you request also seller feedback,
yes.
like to get your stars? So is that 2 things you offer also inside?
Yes, and just to clarify, seller feedback and reviews are totally different, but obviously in the industry, people kind of use the terms interchangeably. And the Amazon request a review button, that message that Feedback 5 automates, it asks for both a product review first, and then towards the bottom, it asks for seller feedback. So that message asks for both. But yes, Feedback 5 manages and monitors feedback and reviews, and you can request feedback and reviews. But again, the feedback is specifically about the seller and the customer service and shipping and packaging. And, if you had a prompt response, if they did reach out to you, the product review is specifically about that item.
Yeah, it's clear. I remember as a user sometimes leaving a review for the product and then finding out, although I should know about Amazon, that I'd left a seller feedback because it wasn't super clear, I found. So it's like it can be probably sometimes a bit misleading. But the thing you were saying, and that's an interesting learning, is that it's very difficult to change a product review, but you can change, or you can ask the buyer to change his seller feedback quite easily.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and the feedback is found on your Amazon storefront, and then the reviews are on your product listing. But yeah, seller feedback, absolutely, you can ask them to remove it.
Because
And feedback is
yeah.
almost more damaging than a negative review. Negative reviews obviously are damaging for that product or your overall brand, but seller feedback, if you get negative seller feedback, that's a metric that rolls up into your order defect rate or your ODR. And if that number slips too low, you can be restricted from selling on Amazon. So your seller feedback is crucial to be looking at that and paying attention. So
And also it's very important for your buy like to be eligible to buy to
buy
win the
box.
buy box, because if
Hmm.
someone's got the same price and also is prime eligible and they've got 99% and you've got 95%, they will win the buy box because
Yeah,
the
I
system
mean,
will.
yeah, all things equal, like if when we've this what we've seen is that a seller with a solid reputation will win the buy box much more often than one who has a track record of disappointing Amazon shoppers. So winning the buy
Really.
box, yeah, seller feedback definitely plays into that.
So for me, it's a great learning is okay, fight or at least review, go back to the buyer when there's a bad review on the as a seller, because that's a very important one. And in like in case of do you get also reporting from feedback 5 on when you get a bad review also as a seller? Is there like an alert system which tells you careful, you've got you've got a bad review?
Yes, so you can sign up for negative feedback or negative reviews or both. You can get text alerts, SMS alerts for each individual time, or if that becomes a little bit too much to manage, you can just have like a daily digest where we just send one email a day that highlights
Tells you,
any negative things that you need to address. So, and then
okay.
you can also just go into the tool, into the dashboard, kind of sort by negative reviews, negative feedback. You can make notes next to it that I reached out to this customer. So, yeah.
Okay, very, very useful tool. We've got a question, which is actually two questions, which
Sure.
I'll read out to you, Colleen. I have two questions. One, all in all, what is that we can and cannot say when putting an insert in the package? Okay, just we probably need to reclarify what's possible. Two, we know that the type of product is important when it comes to when the customer is actually going to leave a review, if it's a shoe, a t-shirt, or food. Overall, though, what would you say is a good strategy to more or less know when the client is most likely to click and write a review? Is it ever too late? So it's
Okay.
to the when, like
When?
when is the best time to ask for it? Is very early, 1 month, or
Yep.
what's your take on that? And then
So yeah, so we'll start with
start
that
with
one and
this
then go
part,
back.
yeah.
Okay. So as far as the timing, Amazon guidelines say that you, as of November now, you can only ask for reviews and feedback within 30 days. So the timing, and sorry, within 30 days of order completion. So once that item arrives on their doorstep and it's marked as complete, then that's when the 30 days starts. So it really depends on the item. If it's shoes, clothing, something that basically they're going to try on within a day and they'll know whether they like it or not, then within the first couple days of order completion, I would be sending that email or review request. If it's something more technical or something that they kind of have to put together, they might not have a chance for a week to, to put a shelf together or a bike together, whatever it is. Then I would, maybe wait 14 days. Or if you're selling maybe like supplements or vitamins, like they're not going to know maybe in 3 days if the vitamins or supplements are helping. So maybe at 25 days, when they've been maybe taking them for a month, maybe they'll start to see some differences. So it really depends on the product. And when in feedback 5, you can automate your campaigns so that by ASIN, you can send certain messages at certain times. So
Mm.
maybe all of your shoes and clothing that you sell, you want to send at 3 days after order completion. Maybe toys you want to send a week after. Maybe any computer type products that you sell, you want to do like 3 weeks after. Supplements, you'll send 4 weeks after. So you
Or
can
maybe before
automate all of
Christmas,
this.
you want to make wait that
Yeah,
it can
and now
arrives
might
after
yes,
Christmas. Yeah,
now might be a good time to say 25 days out I want to request a review, because people might not be opening up the gift for a couple weeks, and then that's when they'll be ready to say like, "Oh, my daughter loved it. It was great." And they'll be more excited to leave a review.
makes a lot
Um,
of sense.
so hopefully that answers. So yeah, it's really
Yeah,
just I would think about your products, the category, or the actual item itself, and if you received that, how long would it take you to understand if you love, like, or don't like that product? So,
Yeah.
and then the first
Yeah.
question,
Is that what we allowed? Because we
the
so
product
probably
inserts.
joked about what was not allowed. So clearly, what is allowed to
Yeah.
put in like product insert.
So product inserts are very similar to your emails. Amazon states that the communication guidelines are all communication, which includes product inserts, and you just need to be as neutral as possible, which means you can say, thank you for purchasing this product. Please leave us a review on Amazon. But if you say anything that's more coercing to get them to leave a positive review, or if it could be looked at as your diverting them to talk to you instead of if they have a negative experience, then Amazon has been known to restrict sellers for that.
Yeah. If they found out on your product that you have that, they could
Right. Yeah.
like ask you not or block you to sell. So
Right.
basically, you cannot ask them to call you. Like you cannot ask them to say, okay, if you're not happy, call me. That's not
Right.
allowed by Amazon. The only
Right.
thing you
And
can say is very blunt. It's like very simple. It's like just leave a review, nothing else.
right.
Right.
Right. Thank you for the purchase. Please leave us a review. Hope you had a good experience. The other thing is Amazon says that you can't have any links or URLs, not even like in your logo. So if your logo is e-commerce, then you can't have ecommerce.com below it in your email when you put that image.
Okay.
And same thing on product inserts. They say no URLs. From what I've seen, they've been a little bit more lenient about that with product inserts because so many companies have their URLs on their packaging. Like if you buy a Sony DVD player, it's going to have sony.com on the directions and on the, it's
They
going to
will
have their
have a
customer
hard time.
service number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
They'll have a hard time stopping that. Yeah.
right. So that's something that they seem to be more lenient about. It seems like the most restrictions are when sellers have been very clearly diverting the buyer to contact them if it's a negative experience because they're trying to avoid that negative review going up on Amazon. So if it's that obvious, then you could be restricted. So
Great. I have another question. So we've got a couple of questions. I'll jump to one which links to the categories. Could you say there are certain product categories that tend to have a higher or lower conversion rates in reviews compared to other categories? So what are the good ones and the bad ones?
So that's a good question, and we're actually working on a study for that right now. So we hope to share that in first quarter next year. So we're looking very closely at that data actually as we speak. So our product team. So I hope to have a blog post out maybe in January about the different categories and what we're
You
seeing with
don't
the
have
reviews.
any golden nuggets early
So
for
no,
us
no.
today.
So
No.
and mainly it's because with buyer seller messaging, with sellers sending totally different messages for every product or every seller sending something different, it was hard to compare. But now if we
Mm,
look at that, the variable is the categories, but everybody's sending the same request a review message. That's what we're looking at. So
yeah.
everybody who's using the request a review button, we know they're sending the same exact message, the same subject line, and so that's that's what we're looking at. Then the variable is, okay, out of everybody sending that, all the different categories, which ones have better conversion rates. We're also looking at the timing and some other data. So now that we have, so many more sellers
Yeah, you can
using that.
compare apples to apples in that
Right.
sense. So we'll be patient and we'll follow
Yeah, but
that
keep your eyes
in
out, like take a look at our blog, and yeah, hopefully we'll
we'll
have that
do.
out in January.
Another question on insert, as it's on the same topic. Would Amazon think it's suspicious if you suddenly decide to put insert when you didn't have any before?
No, I don't think so. No,
I would
I
agree.
mean,
Yeah,
Amazon
if you
encourages.
follow the rules,
Yeah, as long as you're
then
following the rules, because Amazon encourages sellers to ask for reviews. So that's a good thing, I think, in Amazon's eyes, that you are, finding other ways to try to request reviews and get feedback so that you can make sure that the experience is a good one.
great. Then another one, which I think is very interesting, is it possible to do A/B testing through Feedback 5? Obviously on the buyer seller message, because
Yes.
the Amazon one you
So
can't.
it was up until last month because with Amazon's new guidelines, now with links not allowed, no tracking pixels are allowed. So we're not allowed to do that anymore. So what we can recommend is that if you want to A/B test buyer seller messages, you could send one message like for all orders ending in an odd number, and another message all numbers order numbers ending in an even number, and then you can kind of calculate yourself which one is getting more reviews. But we can't put the tracking pixels in there to measure open rates and click-through rates and such like we used to be able to. So there's kind of, some manual workaround that you could do some of your own, A/B testing. But it's more just, try to take like this 50% and this 50% and see which one works better.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, in a sense we can do, but
Right.
needs a bit to be
Yeah.
agile.
So
Okay.
so we're a little bit more restricted too. So that was, unfortunate that we had to remove the A/B testing piece.
Yeah.
But it's across the board, and so
Not easy to work with Amazon.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
change. They are big. They can change the rules. Another question. Hi, our products are being sold in Germany and India for a few years now. We have a great reviews in Germany, but have bad ratings in India as the customers are not so used to the DIY products. A few months ago, the Indian reviews showed up in the German marketplace and it affected our EU sales numbers very much. Did Amazon change any of its policies?
So as far as policies, I'm not sure of any policies regarding international reviews, but as far as like changes, yes, we also noticed as of a few months ago that now they're showing the global ratings, the international ratings between marketplaces. And yeah, that's unfortunate because you're right. There's a lot of cultural differences with certain products. So I don't know. I don't really have any advice for you there other than maybe just replying to those reviews in line, those comments, so that if somebody in Germany like does what Jerome, what you said you would do is you'd click on the 1-star reviews and read them, and if they see like, I didn't know I had to put this together. What are you talking about? And your response is, oh, sorry for any confusion. This is a do-it-yourself product. Like if you take a look at the listing, like da 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 da. But making sure that your listing is very clear that it's DIY, do it yourself, and so that
Yeah,
hopefully
I
more
think
Indian
that
sellers will at least know what they're buying if something seemed confusing. But at least then German sellers, if they see those negative reviews, maybe they will think, okay, well, that was kind of unrealistic that they left a 1-star review. This is pretty clear it's a do-it-yourself. If the complaint is just that it was a do-it-yourself, not that the quality was bad, I mean, I'd probably still buy it if I saw that it was just confusion from the 1-star seller misunderstanding the product.
my workaround would be to create another EN code and
Oh,
to
yeah.
have another ASIN for them to not match it as
Yeah,
much as
good point.
possible.
Good
Because
point.
probably that's something, because it's true, and specifically some countries, and I think India is one where the reviews are very like it's they they can be very disappointed very quickly, and the customer service and the way they articulate it is very direct, let's say, and therefore they will be, if they're not happy, it's very clearly, and you can have very bad reviews from my experience, which
Right.
is not maybe the same in, like, you wouldn't get so many bad reviews. A lot of people in Europe which are not happy just don't leave a review also. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
a big impact. But yeah, difficult situation indeed. So I think we are trolling along nicely to the hour. As usual, the questions came at the end, but it's great.
Good.
I think for me, it's the nuggets for me is like, you can expect 3 to 5% return, or like return on investment, or like conversion rate of those emails.
Yeah.
You can fight the seller, or you should be on the back of the seller review saying to make sure that this goes in a good, because it can be changed by the buyer. And the third one is you probably using the Amazon email is the best solution. So I
Right.
think that's 3 great learnings from you today,
Good.
Colleen. Thank you very much.
Good. Sure.
And
Yeah. And
we
anybody
will
can feel
be
free to reach out to us at any time, and happy to, have a one-on-one conversation or, talk with you further. So
great. Thank you very much. And we will be chatting together again
in
in
January.
January, and you will be hosting the webinar. So
Yes. With more
great.
changes going on in the world with Brexit. And yeah, so we have a lot more to talk about in January.
Very exciting. Very
Yeah.
exciting. So thanks a lot, and
Sure.
have a great day, because for you it's early. For us, it's already very dark. So
Yeah. And
talk to
happy
you soon,
holidays,
and
everybody. Take
happy
care.
holidays. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Bye bye.